Hey, what's happening, buddy? This is Hayden Adams with A Designer Who Codes. In this video, I want to talk about how to choose the right font for your next web project. I'm going to break it down in 5 easy questions that you can ask yourself when choosing the right font. And with that, let's get started. Question number 1, header or body copy? So when it comes to picking fonts, I first think about, is it going to be a headline font or a body copy font? And what I mean by that is it going to be a sentence of text or will it be a paragraph of text? Now I'm using Adobe Fonts, formerly Typekit. You can also use Google Fonts. But the reason why I like using this is that I can break down my fonts into much more specific usages and styles. So is my font going to be a headline or going to be a paragraph? If it's a headline, then I can look at my font size at about 35 to 40. So I'm looking at how the text will look in a headline style. However, if it's a paragraph or a body copy font, then I want to flip to something like the grid and drop my text size down to about 17 or 16 to get a feeling to see how it will be readable. So if we look at this HWT Edda font, well, it probably looked great in a lot larger size. The problem is that once you get to a paragraph size, it really becomes unreadable, and that becomes a big problem. So I'm thinking about choosing fonts. I first think about, is it a headline or is it a body copy or a paragraph font? And then I also start to look at it in that way as well to see how it looks. So if I go back to my list, this is not really a paragraph. So I would go, okay, this is more about how the size will look like as a heading versus a paragraph. That's the first question you want to ask yourself. Question number 2, is it going to be a serif or a sans serif font? So I have to determine if I'm going to focus on a headline or a paragraph. The next thing I'm going to focus on is it going to be a sans serif or a serif font? So if we go into Google Fonts, up into categories, you get 5 options. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to default to turning off display, handwriting, and monospace. I don't really use these because they don't really look good in a wide range of type. And as I'm adding more and more pages, I want to make sure that my type looks good across all swaths of paragraphs. The same is also the same. That works. Anyways, the same also applies into Adobe Fonts, whereby I can come up to the classification and just select one of these options. What works really great is I can get a selection of looking at the fonts and I can say, well, is this the style of font that I want to use in my project? Or is the sans serif font more of the style of font that I want to use in my project for, in this case, a headline font? Or if I flip to the grid and I have more of a complete sentence in here, here we go, we'll drop it down to size like 17 and I flip to the serif font. Is this the font that represents my style of design, or is it the sans serif? What I also like about Adobe Fonts is it also gives you the slab serif font as well. It's kind of a mixture. It's the flat tails of a serif font. So it's kind of a great hybrid if you're going, you know what? The sans serif font doesn't quite work and the serif font might not work either. So the slab serif usually fills in that void of going, I want both, but not neither. The downside about Google Fonts, you don't really have a slab serif option. This is why you prefer using Adobe Fonts when possible to select the font that I want to use. Question number 3, thick or thin? Once I've determined if I want a serif or a sans serif, and I'm thinking about body copy and paragraph, the next I consider is about the weight of the font. What's great about both Google Fonts and Adobe Fonts, you can choose the weight down below. So I can choose if I want a thin font, it'll give me options to choose from, or if I want a thick font, more of a heavy, bold font to go with my design. The same with Google Fonts is that I can go in here and I can say, you know what I'm looking for is thickness. So I can scroll this circle back and forth. I can say I want thin fonts or I want thick fonts. Now also note, if you want a heavy weighted font, you'll almost always find them in the sans serif. Serif fonts do come with a pretty good size weight, but if you want a heavy font, you're going to have to sacrifice the serif for the sans serif font. Those are where you'll find the heaviest of fonts going on. So if I want a heavy font, I know that I'm going to go right into the sans serif font. Also, I'm looking for when it comes to weights is that I'm looking, so okay, this has 14 fonts, this has 4, this only has 2. When it comes to a body copy, I want to make sure I can use both a book or a regular font and a bold. So some fonts won't have that. That's also why I don't really go into the decorative areas. So if we change sans serif to the handwriting or display fonts, these fonts, if I turn off the thickness, usually only have one style. So lobster here only has one weight. The same with, where am I looking at here? This Abril fat face. This only has one style. So I know that this font will pretty much not work when it comes to paragraph type because there's no way to have a normal book or body copy size and a font that's also heavy or bold as well. Question number 4, what's the X height? So what exactly is an X height? The X height refers to the height of the letter X in relationship to the capital letters of the font. This more applies to a body copy or a paragraph type. So let's grab this for a better example to explain what an X height is. I'm going to make sure I go back to weight regular in sans serif. I'm going to grab interstate just for now. Let's apply this to a CodePen project and let's look at the X height. So I'm going to add this to a web project. I will call this one. Oh, I think I already made a YouTube demo. There it is. There's my YouTube demo. Let me save this. Interstate light. So I'm going to copy this. Let's go to import and I'll copy this piece of text. Let me come over to CodePen. Let me go out of this one and drop in something new. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this font. Where to go? Interstate. Where did the... Come on. I thought I had normal. Did normal not show up? Let's just go interstate condensed light for the fun of it, because I apparently did not take the book weight font with me. All right, and we'll go body, drop it in, font family. So let's also make font size so we can see it be 50 pixels. There it goes. And we do need some extra type. So let's go over to lipsum.com. And in here, let me grab a dummy paragraph. Perfect. And let's drop in a paragraph tag and a close of a paragraph tag. Perfect. A lot of work for just the X height. So what the X height amounts to is we look at these lowercase letters. Let's just type lipsum XXXX for right now. Should pop up. So that's literally X in comparison to the capital T. This has an overall pretty tall X height. If you look at the ratio of the X to the T, it's pretty tall. But if we find a different font, more especially in the serif category, let's grab a serif font. Let's grab Bodoni Moda for right now. And we're going to select the regular 400, select this style, import. So we'll grab this import, drop it in right here. And let's make this one be Bodoni. And we'll come over here or over here and grab Bodoni Moda. And I'm quickly realizing that 50 pixels was probably too big. There we go. That's better. So we'll just duplicate this paragraph. And then what we'll do is we'll make P class Bodoni. There we go. And that's spelled right. There it goes. So notice now how this font, if you look at the overall height of the X, let's make it actually just back to 50 and I think about it. So if we scroll down, this is a better example. Notice how much shorter is if I actually just put XXXXT on this last sentence. We can see the combination. Notice how the T here is a lot taller than the overall X below. The X here happens to be a lot taller. The greater amount of X height that you have, the less you need for leading. So that way I can say, well, in this case, the line height, I will say is 1.4 EM. And now you're seeing a difference in line height in comparison to right here. So the X height really can make a difference depending upon your font size and your line height. So it's going to be aware of as you pick fonts, not so much when it comes to a headline font, but more so when it comes to a paragraph or a body copy font. Looking at the X height to seeing, is it more readable or is it less readable? The reason why also it's more readable when there's a lower X height is your eye can move down from the T down to the D. When there's a higher X height, there's a little bit less room to identify between the capital letter and the lowercase letter. So lower X heights are actually much easier to read than higher X heights. So be aware of that when it comes to your paragraph or your body copy. And question number 5, do the fonts work together? So this is an overlooked question, but it bears worth asking. Do the fonts work together? So obviously in this example, the answer is no. This interstate condensed does not look good compared to Bodoni. What a great little feature is inside of Google Fonts is this. So if I go back to Google Fonts and I say, you know what, let's choose Frances as my headline font. I'm going to close the little screen right here. If I scroll down the page, it also recommends popular pairings with Frances. So it'll actually give me options to pair with it. So it's assuming that I want to use this as my headline font, but it also shows me what fonts work as body copy as well. So if I want to choose Roboto, or I can choose Open Sans, it shows me a great combination thereof. And I can say, you know what? Perfect. Let's add this. If I add and view my selected families, I'm going to turn off this one. I don't need this one. And let's grab the 400 weight of this style. I'll grab the import. And now I can see how it looks like and how it blends together. I'm going to close all of this, close all of that. And let's add this to our project to see how it looks. So what I want to do then is add this one to my H1. We can say H1, drop it in, and we'll say at the top, H1, this is a headline. There we go. Now it should show the font perfect. And we'll add to a paragraph. Oops, come back here. Where'd I go? There we are. And I'll grab the Open Sans and drop it in. So now I can see that does it work based upon the recommended pairings of the two fonts. And so far it looks pretty good, but it's worth looking at not just the headline font, but how the other paragraph font matches or works together. So I'm curious, is there a font combination that you absolutely love using? If so, drop me a comment down below, either talking about the Google fonts, the Adobe fonts, or some other font combination. I love to hear what you enjoy using when it comes to font combinations, both as a headline font and a body copy font. As always, I'm Haydn Adams with A Designer Who Codes.